Hey guys, thanks for being here. A couple quick comments about last week's game. Very much impressed with, really impressed with the way our guys started that game. I was worried anytime you always try to look for advantages, disadvantages going into the game. The fact that we had a very physical game against Iowa the previous week, very physical, and our opponent was off. And so I think our staff and our players really, the good thing is about this team, I'm very honest with them and very open with them, and I was very concerned about them being fresh, and especially after that game, but still getting our work done against a fairly complex offense and defense, and they did a great job. My hat's off to our staff and our players because we didn't practice as long as we would normally just because of the previous week's game, and then we had to get them fresh for the Penn State game, knowing that Penn State would be very fresh. So very impressed with the work ethic for that week. On offense, the champions are Marcus Hall, Corey Lindsley. Those guys are playing. I made a comment. If we're not, it's hard for me to say we're the best offensive line in America because I just don't get to see everyone else. But I've done this a while, and this is I'd take this offensive line over any offensive line that I've seen. These guys are tremendous players, and their work ethic and alignment and cohesiveness is arguably one of the best I've ever been around. Tight ends Jeff Hireman and Nick Vanette, both graded out champions, are playing very well. Jeff Hireman's playing at a very high level right now. Certainly in blocking, I know we got to get him some more catches, but he's just playing at a very high level. Wide receivers continue to improve and play very well. Chris Fields, Devin Smith, and Philly Brown. Trying to think who didn't make it. Oh, Evan Spencer, and that's surprising because he did play well. I got dinged up a little bit, but he'll be fine for next week. And then the co-offensive players of the week are Carlos Hyde, playing at a very, very high level, and then offensive tackle captain Jack Mewhort. Played as well as we've seen him playing. He plays at a high level too. On defense, Ryan Shazier graded a champion effort. Duran Grant, C.J. Barnett, and then we had co-defensive players of the game. Number one is Roby, played very well, played his best game, and also was very, very instrumental in our special teams. And Noah Spence played by far his best game. 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 5 pressures, 34 production points. And that's kind of when we recruited Noah, that's what we anticipated we'd have. On special teams, Jordan Hall, we welcome him back. He was on all phases of kicking game and played exceptional, all of them. Great effort and great, very productive. Was the lead blocker on Dontre Wilson's return. Made a great tackle, his first tackle, I think, and maybe as a Buckeye. That might not be sure. I'm not sure about that, but he look for him to be continually very involved in kicking game. The other guy I want to mention is Craig Cataline. Very unique story. 4 years in the Navy, served our country overseas, and he's arguably my favorite, but one of my favorite players, and he was very powerful in kickoff cover for us. Very valuable guy in our team right now. Just his demeanor, his leadership, his toughness, and was all over the place on kickoff. And Dontre Wilson also had champion level mention. Our punter did good as well. So I'll answer any questions. This is a week of getting some guys healthy. We want to get Evan Spencer back. Braxton Miller also got hit in the knee a little bit, and then late in the game it was sore. He's fine. So we just got to, today's the day to get him healthy because we need him to be full speed by tomorrow. Have a good Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'll answer any questions for you.
Far left, Rusty.
Herbert, when you took the job, you inherited a team that had a losing record, 7 losses. Were you wary that there might be problems with the culture or personnel that might take longer to turn this around than what you might be optimal?
Not really. I mean, I guess I have so much respect for Ohio State and the previous coaching staff. I knew all those guys. I knew Coach Dressel very well, so I kind of figured it would be, there is some maybe issues, but nothing that can't get fixed, and you can recruit good players at Ohio State. I think early in the season, our first year, I was very alarmed. We weren't playing very hard. We weren't playing very smart. I had a brand new coaching staff that I was concerned about, and all those concerns seem to be working themselves out because we had incredible leadership last year, and our coaching staff turned out to be very good. But I didn't know 7 of the 9 I didn't know. So, no, I didn't think it was, you know.
Are you a little bit surprised that, not surprised that it's worked out how it has, but again, they had lost 7 coming off a bowl game, coming off losses to big games down the stretch the year before, that there haven't been, that they've been able to overcome any problems they've encountered. You win close games, you win big games, whatever.
I try not to look back too often. You know, I look back to the beginning of the last year, and that was very alarming. Up until that point, up to now, we're just trying to find a way to get to the next week. So we compartmentalize. I mean, we focus, and so to answer your question, I haven't even really thought about it until you brought it up. We're just trying to get to a win on the road at Purdue.
Second row middle, Dave.
You guys brought a lot more pressure defensively. Did you go to the defensive coaches and say, hey, this is something I want done, or can you just take us through maybe the change there?
Yeah, we did have some conversation. I think Ryan Shazier is one of the best blitzers in America that doesn't blitz very much, and so we had that conversation. I think disruptive defense is hard to go. I'm an offensive guy, so disruptive defenses are very hard to work against. And I thought Luke and Everett did a very good job and mixing it in. Some pressures, but we disrupted this quarterback. And to let that guy sit back there and throw, I'm not sure, I don't know if he'd lose a game, but we certainly wouldn't have held him to 14 points.
Devin Bogart, I want to ask about him real quick. He left. Is he okay, or?
Yeah, he hurt his knee, ACL, same knee. So just crushing. He's in my office right now, and he's a great kid. He's going to actually very positive about it. He's going to have surgery this week. Big blow.
Front row, Bill.
Just took my question. So, in terms of the defensive pressure, how frustrating was it until last week? It did seem to be a little more passive than you probably wanted.
I think it's frustrating for everybody. I mean, there was a time here where a decade of defense that was as good as anybody in America. Last 3 years, it hasn't been that way. But I see improvement. I think player development is going to be very important. We lost a lot of great players from last year's team. Last year's defense, the last half of the year, was Buckeye defense that I was used to watching over those years. First half was not. The first half of this season, we're okay. I knew we'd have some growing pains with all the brand new players. You know, when Christian Bryant went down, you're playing with, I want to say 8 or 9 new starters on defense. But we're 9 games into it, so I think we should be, I'm glad we played the way we did because I was starting to get a little concerned.
What's the next step, do you think, in terms of the development of the defense?
I just keep doing what we're doing. Next step is we want to be a disruptive defense, and we will be a disruptive defense. And that means sometimes you might give up a play. That's okay. That's better than just giving up a bunch of plays. So I like where we're at. I like the fact that we are getting better. We address some situations, and you see some development going on. The Christian Bryant injury was, I keep going back to that because that's just something you brush underneath the carpet. I mean, our best player, and he's out of the game. Our best leader on that side of the ball, he's out of the game. So I like the fact that I saw some energy, I saw some pulse on defense, and I was concerned up for the last few weeks like a lot of people were.
Front row, Tim.
Yeah, with that in mind, Corey Pitt Brown had a big play. What does that do for a player's confidence, you think? Or because obviously he's been thrust into that role of Christian Bryant.
Well, it's interesting. Coach Fickle and I had a meeting this morning, and he made the comment that, because we were kind of giving ground at an alarming pace again, a little bit like the way the Iowa game started. And for him to step up the energy level, because I go right to offense. I don't see what happens on the sideline. You saw a very confident team coming off that field like we can do this. And where Iowa wasn't that way at all. They score there, that's a whole different ball game.
And the other thing, Dontre Wilson, he was upbeat after the game. He got more touches. Do you see, I know we ask about him every week, but he seems to be adding a little bit more every week. What do you see in your crystal ball coming down the stretch here?
I see a guy that's, on one of our big plays, he was blocking. And so that means he's learning to be a full-time member. It's not just, hey, Dontre's in the game, So he'll be more and more involved. The thing I like about Dontre that you all see is his incredible passion for the game. He's an energizer, and yeah, we've I don't want to say mandated it, but he'll be more and more and more. Played very, very well, by the way. I mean, and when I say very well, of course he carried the ball well and all that, but he did a lot of things well.
Front row, Todd.
Urban, is there anything that you guys do differently now that the calendar changes to November? Do you coach him with more urgency? Do you expect more urgency from them? It just seems like November is a month around here where things mean a little bit more than, you know, not to dismiss anything else that's happened, but it seems like there's more of a sense of urgency in this month, not just here, but you know, across all top 25 programs.
Well, we don't go into season saying we want to win this, win this, win this. We're not. If you look around, there's not a bunch of goals. We don't have or goal board and go undefeated, win a national champ. We don't put that down. We simply, there's too many variables involved. And my concern, ever since I've been head coach, you know, I've said, well, what are our goals for the year? And we don't have that conversation. It's always the same: to compete for championships in November, to get to November, and then let's go try to find a way to win a championship. And because there's so much, you know, injuries and issues you have to deal with. So that's our focus. We're going to be in November, and we are competing for championships. So you can bet the focus is very intense.
Do things get turned up a little bit, though, like practice?
Yeah, that's practice. Oh, I don't know about that, because I think it's on it's a fine line. We've had some kids, we were 8 games into it, they were playing, you know, 650 plays. So there's a lot of wear and tear that we're very cautious of. But the focus is very much there.
Far right, Austin.
Urban, I know there's a lot that goes into developing a quarterback. Braxton's completion percentage is up around 12 points. What do you think has been the most important part of that improved accuracy?
Fundamentally, he's a much different player than he was a year ago, and knowledge of the offense, those two things. And I see it every day. The thing we can't do, and I challenge our coaches all the time and myself, we can't get bored and create these new plays because you're bored with the old ones. The old ones work just fine. Just keep doing it over and over again. And the more a quarterback does the same system, you got to figure now, up to this point, Braxton was his last year was his second system as a quarterback, and now he's in it the same one, same coach, same system for 2 years. You should be better. He is really better, though. I mean, I anticipate he'd be better. He's a little better than better. He's done a nice job.
To go back to what Tim was
It's
asking,
my master's degree from Ohio State. Better than better.
to go back to what Tim was saying about Dontre, have you found that he is as valuable as a decoy or more valuable than when you get the ball in his hand?
Maybe not as, because he's pretty lethal with the ball in his hands. And where do you see him next year? I mean, because we're going to get him big and strong, and he's gained 15 pounds since he's been here. Yeah, he's a great practice player. You know, on Fridays or walkthrough, he's still going full speed. So he's just one of those guys. You got to have him around.
Far left, Rob.
Urban, one of the motivating methods that coaches use with players is don't forget the sting or the taste of losing. We've got guys on this team who never lost in college going back, you know, a couple of years. How do you keep them agitated? You've kind of lost that bullet, so to speak, to use with them. And two,
We're pretty good agitators around here.
so that's one. Two, you've gone 3 years. You've been 3 years since you've lost a game personally. Have you lost any of the exact feeling of that sense of loss and the feeling of losing? Do you remember what it's like?
Are we allowed to remove him from that? I think it's very valid that, don't worry about coaches, but about players keeping them hungry. I think if that's kind of the message or the question, and that's something that we think about all the time, but I mean, that word, that L word, is not a good word for anyone. And so the one thing is we coach very hard, and Lou Holt said it best: you coach hard when you win. When you lose, it's very fragile. And we were coaching you come out to practice and you'd be like, my gosh, you'd act like the offense is the worst in the country, and especially on Tuesdays. They're bloody Tuesdays around here for a reason. And I think that's as long as we're still coaching that way, and we will, you know, they're very hungry.
How about you, the feeling of losing? You still have it?
Do I still have it? Yeah, I mean, I just want to avoid it at all costs. So.
Fourth row, middle, David.
Urban, since Kenny Guy was warming up at Northwestern, Braxton Miller has gone to a different level. I'm just curious, as a psychology major, if you find that to be a coincidence whatsoever.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think he knows, and I've told him that there's absolutely no doubt. He's like it's maybe a little more complex than that, but if our center doesn't play well, we're going to make a change if we have a good center behind him. And you've seen that at some other positions, that as guys improve, we're going to make a change. And he knows that. You know, he's not used to being second fiddle, well, you know, his high school career and his college career so far, but I love him to death. He's like a son to me, and we get along great. But he knows that I have a job to do, and that's to make sure the best players are on the team, and the guy behind him happens to be a very good player, very good leader. It was great to get him in the game. We're gonna keep trying to figure out ways to do that.
One more thing on Braxton. As good as he was on Saturday, do you have an envisionment that it can get even better for him?
Oh, much better. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about an incredible release, arm strength. There's still some things. He cowboyed it a few times, which means, you know, when it kind of broke down, he panicked in the pocket when he didn't have to. And we already had a meeting this morning about it. And he needs to know where his check down is. Those are two things just from this past game. He panicked in the pocket 3 or 4 times, and he panicked to the point where he didn't know where his check down was, and that's a problem. That's not good quarterback play.
Last 2 questions. Far left, Doug.
Urban, when you were running through things at the beginning, you mentioned good linebacker play, defensive line, safeties. You like the offensive line, the receivers are improving, the tight ends, Hyde, Braxton. Do you feel like every part of this team is working the way you want it to? I know you can always improve, but do you feel like there are any weak spots on this team, or is everybody doing their job?
No, there are. The linebacker position is still not solidified yet. We're not Ohio State expectation level linebacker position. After this past week, I think most other positions played at a very high level, and so linebacker position is one that we're keeping our finger on real hard, because we just need to improve the level of play and just the numbers of backers we have in the program. Punt team was good. Kickoff return was excellent. Kickoff coverage was probably the best we've had all year. I mean, those guys did a great job. So and then pump block, we didn't have many opportunities last week. So I mean, to answer your question, some areas are real strong, but we got to keep getting better.
You've had your elite teams, your best Florida teams. Were you strong everywhere across the board? Are great teams strong everywhere? Or sometimes are great teams even covering up some deficiencies?
Well, great question. There are, I'd say the one team that it was strong right across the board was 08. I mean, right across the table. Special teams, offense, defense. This one, after the way they played the Saturday, right across the table were pretty strong. The linebacker position is the one that can continue to get a little better, but they fairly strong. But you can be strong, and our expectation level is to be strong in all areas.
Real quick, Curtis Grant, he got that head bump on Saturday. What's his
He's
status?
sore neck. He's fine.
Sore neck?
Yep.
And Lori, final question.
Just want to make sure we get something in about Purdue. They're a very young team. Is it kind of difficult to get a read on them?
I have not watched their offense yet. I've watched their defense. They changed. They were all 4-3 defense about 3 weeks ago before the Nebraska game, changed completely. They're now 3-4, so it means they're just going through some personnel issues and scheme issues. Very big up front, but like I said, we're just still trying to figure out what we're going to see Saturday, because it's completely different from the first half of the season until now.
Unrelated, but I'm curious, you get the question at about the halftime speeches that go on when games aren't going well. You're never asked what halftime is like when the first half has been humming along. I'm wondering how you handle that break in the action when things are going as well as they were against Penn State.
If it's a hungry team, it's very easy, and it's the zero. We tell them it's 0-0. We're starting this game over again, and you're being evaluated. And if you want to, we put a lot of pressure on these players. You come to Ohio State to start, and the good thing is when you recruit fairly well, they know there's a guy right behind you. So if you want to go take a few plays off, there'll be someone else in there, and that's when you start getting a good program. And right now, the certain positions that are playing best, it's not by accident. The gentleman asked me the question about Braxton. He knows the guy behind him now. The freaking stadium's calling his name, so you better be pretty good. Have a good day. Thanks.